Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Focus on Liberia's Literary Hour. I'm your co-host, Jackie Sayegh, and with me, as always, is my prof.
Yes,
Hi, Prof.
yes,
How are
yes.
you?
Fine. Glad to be around again.
Okay, I'm gonna put you on a spot for like a minute so you can talk to the viewers. I need to step away from the camera for a second.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So yes, we are back, and it's often a good time to uh, interact with a lot of our fans out there, and we hope you are all ready for the hour. We will be looking at uh, the question of land. What does land mean for the typical African? When people talk about land, they talk about privatization of the land. That's a kind of novelty in the broad sense of the evolution of the word. And so we are going to look at it and see a couple of novels in which uh, the concept of land is spoken about or discussed fully. So you want to brace yourselves for the hour. Yeah.
Yeah, and Prof, when we decided on this topic, I started to go through some of the novels, and I realized that for a lot of writers, land is so central.
Mhm.
It's almost like um, without the land,
Mhm.
it's not even a group.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, it's like this thread that binds them together.
It is existential, yeah.
Yeah,
Survival, that sort of a thing.
yeah,
Personality, space, and everything I found in the concept of land, especially when we talk about the African.
and I think also when it comes to the the colonizers, I guess, coming
Mhm.
in,
Mhm.
the people, there were two things that they fought them for: religion and land.
Mhm.
The minute they brought in the new gods,
Mhm.
there was a fight.
Yeah,
The minute they started to talk about the land, there was a fight.
getting the rich, especially getting the rich part of the land and all that. Yes, there was a colossal fight.
Yeah, yeah, because that's central to their being,
Yeah.
and especially in East Africa, I mean, with the Mau Mau uprising
Yeah.
and all the fighting that went on,
Mhm.
with the Kikuyus, the
Yeah.
Maasai
Mhm.
land, and things like that. There were a lot of uprising,
Mhm.
fighting for the
Yeah.
land, and really to understand the battle, the
Yeah.
Mau Mau battle. I think we should look at uh, Jomo Kenyatta's facing Mount Kenya,
Yeah.
and he has a lot of
Mhm.
history of the
Yeah.
Kikuyu, and one thing that he said, and he said that communion with the ancestral spirits is perpetuated through
Yeah.
contact with the soil
Yeah.
in which the ancestors of the tribe were buried. The
Mhm.
Kikuyu considered the earth as the mother of the
Of the
tribe.
tribe. Yeah.
Yeah, and we see that, right? A lot of times when they're talking about the land,
Mhm.
it's always the mother earth, mother Africa.
Mhm. Yeah.
It's in Ngugi's books. Women were always the nurturers,
Yeah.
and they were almost like the earth mothers,
Yeah.
and that's how he portrays them.
And again, we are talking about East Africa and whatever. We should not forget our own history.
No, 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 no,
Uh,
no, no.
a lot of the fighting that went on in the early days of Liberia centered on land.
Center on land, yeah.
First of all, people the misunderstanding that land is owned by one person, even the head of a village is a misconstrued phenomenon. People, yes, somebody has to be a lookout for the land, and yet the land is owned by everybody. Land for our people is, as I was saying earlier on, land for our people is a matter of health, is a matter of uh, livelihood. It's a matter of relaxation. Just think about everything that has to do with life. It's also connected with the land, and therefore you cannot pull an African away from the land. You cannot pull the land from away from the African. And as I was saying, I think it's more of a universal thing, except that when it gets into Western economics and what have you, and you're talking about privatization of the land, that is a different matter. But people of all places, look at Kosovo and all those places there where land becomes an integral part of the politics of the place there. So land is very much important.
I think it's Mark Twain who said, "Buy land; they are not making any more."
Okay.
So I mean, they don't make land,
Okay.
So
Don't make land.
people fight for land, and I think also that not misunderstanding. That's too mild a word. The conflict between the colonizers and the Africans
Yes.
is centered. Of course, they wanted the land, but it's centered on the meaning of this land because again the quote from Kenyatta, he said, by Kikuyu law and custom, land occupied and owned by other people cannot be acquired by conquest.
Yes.
For if this were done and previous owners forcibly dispossessed, the Kikuyu fully believed that the spirits of the owners would make it impossible for the occupiers to carry out their agricultural activities with any hope of the blessing of Gia, the god of the Kikuyu.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's one talking about that. There's a few passages in Weed Not Child.
Okay. Yeah.
Where little Njuruji and the father Ngoto, when Ngoto goes to work, he doesn't. This land is supposed to be his land. But they're being dispossessed of the land. He nurtures the plants and everything, and yet it grieves him to see somebody taking the land and making it his own.
Making it his,
Yes, making it his own. And that's that internal tension. That internal tension goes on through many pages in the book.
I think that the conflict is really clear in the river between.
Yes.
Wayaki.
Yes,
right?
Wayaki, yes.
Wayaki and Keboni.
Yes.
Okay, because there are so many books you mixed in it. And Keboni, those two people coming together. Yeah. But when they're talking about Makuyu and Camino, right? Those two towns.
Yes.
And Honaya goes between them. And Honaya is the river.
Yes.
And the river is like the curer of life, right? And the book starts with this beautiful scenery, right? There are these two communities, two villages, on two different ridges, and the river comes between, and if you look at it symbolically, you're saying, well, the river is the healer, it's uniting the two communities, but then the river is also dividing them, because I think Camino was wanted to remain as it was, and the other one wanted the white man's religion and everything, and there's another important thing before we talk about the symbolism, is that Wayaki's father sends him to the white man's school, just like Izelu, Nuwoyi went on his own, but in this one, he sends him to the white man's school along with two of his friends to go and learn, and they stayed there for several years.
Until what is it? Initiation comes in. Traditional initiation comes in, and they are expelled. And then when they are expelled, they come and say, "Well, we have studied a good bit, and we are going to what? We are going to start our own school, so that there is a perpetual flow of the white man knowledge into our own."
And Wayaki was a strong believer of that, of education, as they want to save the community. But also
the new community,
But also there was this thing of Joshua, right? Joshua was the one who was he was the teacher. Oh, he was like John Good Country.
Yes.
Yeah, in Arrow of God.
Yes.
Yeah, John Good Country was like him crying more than a bereaved. He's so
Yeah, that's right.
religious, you know.
In
But
fact, isn't that why he disowned his own children, his
his
own
daughter
daughters?
Muthoni wanted to be circumcised.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and
Yes.
although so in Muthoni also you see the conflict because Muthoni, she was a Christian, but she wanted to be part of the community,
Yeah.
and in the community, women were circumcised.
Yes.
And even though Nyambura says to her, "No, you don't have to do this,"
Yes.
she goes along, and I mean, she goes ahead and she does it, and
Yes.
of course, she ends up dying
Right.
from
Yes.
the infection. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So I think facing Mount Kenya, Jomo Kenyatta explains a lot about the Kikuyu
Mm-hmm.
worldview, and the Kikuyu story of creation is just like uh, uh, uh,
So
uh,
many of them.
it's just like the Bible,
Yeah.
right?
Creation story.
Is uh, God gave the land
Mm-hmm.
to Kikuyu and
Yes.
his wife, for them to take care of the land,
Mm-hmm.
right? And of course, the land is the sacred possession. There's
Yeah.
not possession, but charge. They're
Charge.
supposed to take care of the
Mm-hmm.
land. Yeah. So if you look at if we look at slide I think slide 2, if I may, it says that the Europeans misinterpreted Kikuyu's land tenure by saying that the land was under the communal or tribal ownership, and as such, the land must be Maria Sirikali, which means government property. Having coined this new terminology of land tenure, the British government began to drive away the original owners of the land,
Mm-hmm.
right? And Jan Mohammed says at first the process of land alienation was piecemeal, but in 1921 the colonial court rules that all land, even that which had previously been put aside for African reserves,
Mm-hmm.
was now crown land,
Mm-hmm.
and that all natives were to be considered tenants at will
Mm-hmm.
on land that they had owned for generations.
Hmm.
Imagine that, Prof.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, that whole colonial mentality again flowed into this guy's book, Empire of Rubber.
Oh yeah,
Greg
Midman.
Midman. I'll it's one of those that I will highly recommend for people
We
to
should bring him on.
read. And yeah, if he's
Yes,
around, he should
yeah, yeah,
come
yeah.
on
He came
and
to my university to talk about it, but yeah, we
okay.
can bring him on. Yeah.
Yes, that's a good book, and especially when it comes to the tinderbox that grew with respect to our people being dispossessed of the land. 1 million acres of land and what have you. You know what that means? Taking to Kakata, going all the way to Maryland and all those places there. Chris.
But Prof, we're looking at land in literature
Yeah.
or in African novels.
Yeah.
But if you look at it, even in The Rain and the Night, right, by Wilton Sangawolo, there was a fight between the
Yeah,
Gola,
and
right?
yes,
Yes,
yes.
yes,
River and
for
Coca-Cola,
land,
yeah. Land.
for land,
Land is but without land, Jackie, without land, where do you plant your feet? Without land, where do you lay your head? All these things, they are so interconnected. And again, talking about land, we have to keep in mind that one to fully understand the essence of land has to think about rural Africa. Because there the people commune with the land every single day, every single minute. But with urbanization, well, people, the one place you can rent, that's all there is to it. But the place where you will go, you will touch a palm tree, you will touch a guava tree, you will touch a butterpear tree, and that sort of a thing. Commune with this, sit under them. If you have someone to commensurate with, you sit with that person, you commensurate with that person, and what have you. Those things are so interconnected that you cannot so easily divorce yourself from them.
And also if you look at the Kikuyu say that if they it's like cutting them from their umbilical cord.
Yes.
If you remove them from the land,
Yes.
and then one thing that's I remember I was laughing when I read the story, but like the Maasai, right, of East Africa, the Maasai believe that God gave them all the land.
Yes.
The land is there, so they
Yes.
don't recognize borders because
Yes.
then they are a nomadic group, so
Yes.
they just take the cattle. And I
Yes.
think one time they did not have enough food for the cattle. They just drove the cattle into Nairobi because it was their land. So there's new thing about boundaries
Yes.
and belonging in enclosed places.
Yes.
It's a very difficult thing to
Difficult thing to
comprehend
handle.
for
Yes.
people who have. But Prof, what I would like to know is that you and I, we talked about communal land,
Yes.
sacred land,
Yes.
and farmland. But one thing, when you were discussing about Liberia,
Yeah.
before the settler scheme, before there was any formal
Yeah.
discussion of ownership of land,
Yes.
right? You and I had discussed that when the indigenous people moved towards the coast.
Yes.
I was reading, and then I said to you, what's Deyu and Dako? I want you to explain it in the term of land ownership.
Yeah. Okay. Again, it will come. We come back to the metaphor we have, which had to do with a house.
Yes.
Okay. Now, these people came in and congregated into specific spots. And once you were in a specific spot, you consider that spot to be your room or a set of rooms for yourself. If another group came in and moved on to an unoccupied place, that place became their spot. Of course, there was always going to be a wrangle to an extent of, hey, no, this is the boundary line. So we accept those things within the context of these people, the Kwa, the Mel, the Mande. They had special places to congregate, and those places were considered their natural habitat as it was given to them. So if you came and you said, look, move from here, of course, that will be a what? A signal for war. So that is now that particular place that one group took, that became the Dako. It became the Dako, the nation. So I always refer to those places as cultural nations. So you have the cultural nation of the Grebo people, you have the cultural nation of the Kru people, you have the cultural nation of the Vai people, Loma, Bandi, and all of this. That's how it went.
Okay. So then we come back again. We always seem to come. We want to try and leave history behind, and always do literature.
It cannot be left behind.
Yeah, but it always intertwined. Because if you remember, I don't mean to harp on it, and I don't mean to bring division or anything. But let's come back to the Liberian situation, right? You and I, we had discussed the purchase of Maserado a long time, so I don't want to rehash. But when we were going through the letters, right, when they said that they wanted Providence, when they wanted the Cape, King Peter, right? He said, we cannot sell you this land.
Yes.
He said, if I sell it to you, I will die. My wives will cry. In fact, this is not my land to sell.
Yes.
So then we come back to the communal ownership of land.
Yes.
This was not his land to sell.
Yes.
But after all of that, remember when Eli Aries went to the villages and the people talked, they gave him a reason. They said to him, now that you are one of us, we can give you land. One of the chiefs said to him, but there was a reason we couldn't give you Maserado.
Yes.
Right? It was not just because, it served as the lookout.
Yes.
So when we saw the ships coming, we would go hide.
Yes.
There was another reason. What was that reason, Prof?
Well, because you have to give me a signal, because actually...
they call it Devil Rock.
Oh, okay. Well, okay. The thing about the Devil Rock thing, as we said about it, again, these people were capable of understanding good and evil.
Yeah.
That which was a pariah type of activity actually those engaged in such or things that will contaminate had a place. So again, within the context of, actually you talk about communal, you talk about sacred and what have you, these are not things that you say cut off from the whole thing. All they are saying is that this is for the communal, that will be the universal set. The communal land, that's the universal set. And then within the universal set, you have a place where certain things are done, or where certain things are not supposed to be done. That is why it is said that the land is a representation of spirituality as well as health. The land is a diner. That is where you go to find things to eat. Cassava and all kind of fruit kind or what have you, you go on to do that particular thing. The land is an expression of your personality, the existence and all those things. So within the communal, within that wider cycle is where you find X, Y, Z to go. So everybody, as you are rising up, as you are being a kind of tutored, trained in the understanding of the tribe, these things are kind of taught you. And those who are into a serious structure of indigenous academy, Poro and Sandia, what have you, these are the things that they teach their alums. These are the things they teach their students before they are graduated, and then they become to be fully part of the tribe. That's where initiation and all those things are very much important.
And it's interesting because when the British came, especially to East Africa, they said, "Oh, but the Kikuyus, they haven't even brought the land under their control. They haven't teamed the land. They are not using the land, not knowing that some parts of the land were sacred.
Yes.
They were sacred land that the people could
you don't
not
go farming there.
Yeah, you couldn't go farming. So they use the inactivity on those pieces of land as the reason to possess the land.
Is to not understand the purpose of the land.
Yeah,
the meaning of the land.
So if you look at it, Prof, with the British indirect rule in West Africa, the British indirect rule in West Africa, where we saw that in Arrow of God, where the winter bottom, they said, okay, you know what, you're going to let them take care of their land. I mean, take care of their customs. We own everything, but we will allow them. But traveling in Southern Africa is really an eye-opening experience, because you see, in Southern Africa, the weather, right? Tropic of Cancer, Tropic of Capricorn, the weather is weather that is conducive to the Europeans. I mean, I was surprised when I went and it got like 90 degrees. And I was going to Limpopo, and the lady was telling me, "Oh, it's so hot. It's so hot," because their weather is like California weather.
Yes.
Wild. So the European colonizers live among them in great numbers. They live among them. So before then, I mean, you had Cecil Rhodes owning the whole of Rhodesia, the whole of Northern Rhodesia and Southern Rhodesia, which is Zimbabwe and Zambia. So he owned the land. But now in Southern Africa, well, in Zambia, there's no freehold, right? There's leasehold. So you go to the government and you lease the land, right, for 99 years. But you have, I think, 10 years. The first 5 years, you must build on that land, and then you can keep the land for your 99 years, passing the lease on to your children, so it's fine. But in West Africa, and we see that in Ghana, we see that in Liberia, there's freehold. So you own the land. So now we have moved from this communal land to what we have now is, this is my land, right? This one is mine, right? And so we have swaths of land that there's no development, but people say, "Oh, I'm keeping it for my son in Brooklyn, or I'm keeping it for my daughter in San Francisco," or but the land is there, so you own the land, right? So now this is really the antithesis of what we see in the literature, of what we see in old custom, where the land was owned. Now people might say, "Look, this is modern age. No one people can own the land." But here we see a government like Zambia taking control, right? If you want 5 acres, you want 10 acres, you're going to the government and saying, I will build on this land in this specified amount of time. And because of that, you see development, because people are building, because if they don't build, the land reverts to the government, right? Whereas in our country, there's freehold. Now, in the various areas, like, do you think, is there still land where the chief own the land as a communal land?
Yeah, no, I mean, right now, now again, talking about Kikuyu time or what have you, it's more of uh, pre-colonial time.
Okay.
Pre-colonial time, where if you again we talk about chief only, chief became one of the spokesperson. It's like you have it may be a rough analogy I'm giving. If you have a cup, there has to be a handle by which you hold the cup.
Yes.
Otherwise, it can so easily slip from you. So if you meet a group, or if you meet a town, you meet a village, there's got to be a spokesperson. There's got to be a contact person. And so if you want to think about chief owning the place and what have you, think about that in terms of this person who becomes the contact person. Now, everything to be done with the land, that is why, for instance, whenever there was a time for farming, there was always a palavering. In other words, a discussion. There had to be a discussion. People, over the years, of course, each lineage was represented, and the lineage will know precisely. In our instance, it was after 7 years you went to the land you just left some time ago. Now, if they were taking a particular piece of land, then definitely each lineage head knew the setting of that place, and therefore, whenever there came the moment to go and kind of brush or clear the land, of course, the people had to come together. They had to find their what you call a shama, who set up the perimeters of what to do on the land while they were farming and what not to do on that land farming. So all those rules were put into place. The shaman went to work and did the rituals and all that kind of a thing before the thing started. And when it started, on the day of going to clear the farm, everybody went. It wasn't something like, well, I'm going to stay, I'm not well, I'm going to stay. No, it became that if it was time to go to do the clearing of the farm, people were all set up and they went to do whatever they had to do. Of course, at some point, they had to do coups, which were like teams, working teams to go and help one household followed by the other. So in that instance, there was always the meeting of the minds before people went to work.
Yeah, and Prof, I mean, one other thing is, regardless of where, you remember, long time we're talking about characteristics of the African character,
Yeah.
the African,
Culture.
what makes an
Yeah.
African an
Personality.
African,
Yes.
and we talk about communalism, we
Yeah.
talk
Yeah.
about respect, things like
Yeah.
that. Now,
Even Mimi and all that.
yeah, regardless of region, you see this communalism exhibited in lot of cultures.
Yes.
A lot of cultures, and even in the Sokoto Caliphate in northern Nigeria,
Yes.
right? They say the imam is not allowed to grant anyone permanent possession of a piece of Mamor land taken by compulsion.
Uh-huh.
Nevertheless, such a piece of land may be granted for a limited period.
Yes.
What is meant by Mamor land is that land is suitable for sowing or where there is an immovable property of the unbelievers. The reason why Mamor taken by the compulsion is not granted in perpetuity is because the mere acquisition of it makes it of community benefit. So there's
Yes.
no ownership.
There's no
There's
ownership.
no ownership of land. And I know people are trying to join in to say, oh, that's olden time. But that was the underneath of it. That was the underneath of it. So Kenyatta says it's our umbilical cord. Is that, and there is some symbolism in that, because I know that some people, they bury their children's umbilical cord
Yes.
because they said my child will return.
Hmm.
Yeah, my child will return to this
And
area
yes,
where they belong.
and there's always in most of those places, there's always a marker,
Yeah,
a kola nut tree
yeah,
or an orange tree or something. There's got to be a marker.
yeah.
And if travel out and you go home, the elders in the lineage will take you to that marker.
Marker, yeah,
Will take you to that marker and say, this is where your umbilical cord
is
was
buried. Yeah,
buried. Yes.
yeah, yeah. So we see now that the symbolic nature of land is what signifies the further you are from the land. A lot of writers feel like you're contaminated, you're
Yes.
not good. That's why you have the urban rural divide.
Yes.
In Murder in a Kisawa Patch, the further tenant went,
Yes.
the more corrupted
Yeah,
she
yeah,
became,
yeah, yes, yes, yes,
right?
yes, yes.
Because Gotokai stay on the land.
Mm-hmm.
The people, the rural people,
Yes.
Baltimore shows them as
Mm.
the good people.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
Robert Brown,
Mm.
I see William Allen.
Yeah.
Those people who left and went to the city,
Yes.
they were the contaminated
Yeah.
people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they were the people who had no
Mm.
morals, no
Yeah.
values.
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm.
Because according to, I guess, the old novels,
Yes.
values and morality comes with
Mm.
respect
Yes.
for the land, and
Yes.
hence the elders who tend to the
Mm.
land. Yeah,
And also the individuals. I mean, when we say these things, someone will say, "Oh, are you saying that Africans are not corrupt or what?" No, but the thing about it is there are certain values which, being part of the group, even if you try as much as possible to pull you in.
yeah,
So those things. But when you, as you pointed out quite correctly, when you kind of move away from, you see, moving away from brings you into the sphere of different thoughts and what have you, and therefore keeping so strong, keeping so well to what ought to keep the group together is not there anymore, and that is much of what we struggle from, and that is one of the things that Franz Fanon, for instance, says in his books.
yeah, yeah. The support system is stronger,
At
yeah,
home,
yeah, at
the
home,
support
and it
system is
pulls you
stronger
in.
at
Yeah,
home.
yeah, and I know people are saying, "Oh, not this time," but we're just talking in general,
We're just
because if you,
talking.
yeah,
Just
if you
keep
look,
that in mind. We are just talking.
yeah, because if you look, it is true. I mean, if you leave your support system and you move to the city, there's nobody there to say, "Oh, don't do this or don't do
Yes.
that," and so it's easy. So most of the writers, the African writers, they show the urban areas as
Yes.
a cesspool
Yeah.
of filth and immorality.
All those things. Living by weights and all that kind of a thing.
Yeah, but one thing that is clear in a lot of the African novels and African poetry and thing is that not only are you dispossessed when you leave the land, but the dispossession exhibits itself with instability, longing, melancholy, and sometimes even spiritual death. And I will come back. I know you always like to say we shouldn't come back. I'll come back to negritude. Because
Yeah.
here you have, again, we're looking at the two different ways that the colonizers try to change Africa. The British said indirect rule. You will stay in your villages and we will just tell you what to do.
Yeah.
So in well, in Anglophone Africa, the culture, they're strong because people were not divorced from their culture. They lived their culture. In Francophone Africa and Lusophone, and also Lusophone, people forget Lusophone Africa, also the Portuguese. You know what they say, assimilation, assimilados, right? We will make you the perfect French person. We will make you the perfect Portuguese person. So that means you must learn the best French. You must mimic the mannerisms, you know, and even now you can see you must become a French person, right? So the young men that were taken from the West Indies, from the French West Indies, and from Ivory Coast and the other places, and sent to
Senegal.
France, was a spiritual death. And so they started this ideological movement, negritude, celebration of
Yes,
everything
the
black and
African.
African, everything, you know. And of course, the negative movement. I would say the negative movement, Prof, is almost like the Pan African movement.
No, it kind of grew into,
Yeah.
and then
Okay.
at some point they just merged in terms of the celebration of
Yes.
Africanness,
Okay.
African spirit, African language, African names, and all those things. Yes, they started at a point. Then, of course, they came and then they merged, and today's day they hold to that point of being together.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know, negritude movement came on a lot of criticism, especially by Wole Soyinka. You know,
No,
he say, you know, a Negro doesn't, you know, he said a
a
tiger
tiger doesn't.
does not
Yeah,
proclaim its
true.
tigritude.
Yeah,
Why
yeah.
should a Negro proclaim its negritude? You know,
That's
but it was essential for them. You know, but the people, those people who felt like they were spiritually dead because they were away from their motherland, away from their mother. Also, in literary text, they they put out their longing. You know what
And
is
that
yeah.
that's what brought in Harlem Renaissance, for instance. You know, people coming from World War I, for instance, they came in and still they were being maligned, they were being denigrated and what have you. And so this came about the celebration of the Africanness. That was at the center of the Harlem Renaissance.
Prof, I would try to disagree with you there.
Please go ahead. Please go
Okay.
ahead.
For me, reading them, it was a celebration of blackness, not necessarily Africanness.
No,
And
no.
and
When
and,
I
and
said actually, if I said Africanness, blackness, fine. But you have to go back now to the late 1700s, because the idea of Pan Africanism did not become a movement until the 1900s.
yeah,
But the idea to say, I am somebody, I
yes,
mean well, I have a history, I have
yes,
something, all that, it went all the way back to the late 1700s and then bulged into 1800. It
yeah,
was at that time. Now you have to keep in mind that this whole idea of negritude, I mean, not negritude, the whole idea of Pan-Africanism, not as a movement,
yeah,
because it was with the movement that the substance of economics and the substance of politics got in the picture, and that's where the conferences the
yeah.
conferences
They
were being
split.
held.
But that's why I always say that, you know, you coming together, you must share an ideology. You know, because when they came together, thinking that, okay, you know, we're all black, we're coming to discuss all of this, but the people who came from the Harlem Renaissance era, you know, Langston Hughes and this other, you know, Langston Hughes, I too sing America,
Yeah.
right? Those are people who are saying, look, we have fought for this country, America. We want to be part of this country. You know, let us in. We want to be part. So when they met the Africans, the negritudinists, they said, no, 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 you don't understand. You want to be included. We want nothing to do with our colonizers. We want separation, which is kind of ironic because the francophone people are some of the one that are closest to the colonial masters. But at this time, so that's where they separated, because the idea. So they had some basic similarities, but not. But the poetry, you know, the writings that came out of the negritude movement, again, shows that when you're divorced from this source, which is the land, all your longing is for the land, and everything that it encapsulates you know. One of the of course we know Abiose Nicole,
Yeah.
which is like my all-time favorite. But then there's also Leopold Senghor, who
Yes,
talked
that's Senghor,
about
yeah.
my beautiful black woman. My he talked about my beautiful black woman, but uh 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 um uh, uh the Sierra Leonean, um what is his name? Abiose Nicole. Yeah, you know that poem is like, Prof. When I read that poem, I'm like, oh my
It's like,
God,
yeah,
you
coming back
know
home. Yeah.
it. Yeah, but people like David Diop, you
Yes.
know, who talk. I mean, I think he was the one. He was called the bad boy of Negritude. You know, he talked about when civilization slapped in our faces, and
So,
then he in that same poem he says, and I quote, "Strange men who were not men. You knew all the books, you did not know love, or the hands that fertilize the womb of the earth, the roots of our hand deep as revolt, despite your hymns of pride among boneyards." You know, so he was he really, and I wrote this one down because I wanted to, you know, it was like, we don't belong in your place. Amy Césaire, he said, for sale, he says, and I quote, "I feel laughable in their shoes, in their dinner jackets, in their stiff shirts, in their detachable collars. I feel laughable with all that conversation until you are served in mid-afternoon a bit of hot water and pastries." He goes on and on. "I feel laughable, an accomplice among them, a pander among them, among those bloody hands, red and frightening with the blood of their civilization." You know, so
the
these are very
the
interesting. Yeah,
the
and I
you
think it
can
was Amy there also who said, "Give me my black dolls." You
mm,
know, So it was like, yes, they were in another land, but I think that they really, Prof, um, they really felt alienated, you know, and so it came out. Yeah,
first
yeah,
we have to understand that the concept of Pan-Africanism is the concept of uh, dreaming, screaming for inclusivity, so that there that spiritual aspect of the Africanness, the blackness, is kind of elevated. You know, the African believes that there is rarely a divide between the living and the dead. So that concept of being together, that concept of being together, whether it is physical or spiritual, has to always be there.
yeah,
And for those that either out of their will or out of involuntary exile left, it is kept in the back of the mind that, look, even though you were torn away from home, you are still part of the home. So that is where, if we can understand the concept of Pan-Africanism, that is where we have to think about spiritual inclusivity. So that wherever you are still an African. Whatever you do, you are still an African, even within the context of the spirituality. And we should never forget that. And as these people moved away, and sadly enough, they were dehumanized and what have you, it was also, the Pan-Africanism was also a celebration of, and negritude was also a celebration of the blackness, the Africanness that people should never ever forget.
yeah, and if you look at the book that we discussed last week, Arrow of God,
Mhm.
right? We talked about the Ikenja,
Yes,
right? That it
yes,
has your personal God, your
yes,
chief, but then it has your ancestors,
yes,
right? It has your ancestors also there.
yes.
And then they have the I think the communal gods or what, but those
It,
things
it, it is
are
a
you.
crucible. Yes, it's a
Yeah,
crucible of the
yeah, they're you.
spirituality of our people. Yes.
Yeah. So with negritude, when you had Amy Césaire, you had David Diop, you had Leon
Yes.
Damas, you had
Hmm.
Leopold Senghor,
Hmm.
you know, you had all of these coming together. to create this movement
Yes.
that says, yes, you want to change us into the
Something
perfect
else.
Frenchman,
Yes.
but you cannot. We are necritudinous. We
Whose
celebrate.
whose perfectness? And whose perfectness? My perfectness or your perfectness? Your perfectness is not my perfectness, and therefore you've got to understand the dichotomy.
Yeah, so there's this upliftment, this elevation of all things black. These what they call it, the Fab Four: Cizé, Damas, Diop, and
Yes.
Senghor, right? So
Yes.
when they got together and they started this movement of negritude, and people are saying they were uplifting everything black, right? And of course, like you say, it morphed into Pan-Africanism. But then we come back again, we kind of like went around, we come back again to the centrality of land, you know and one of the things, so I'm reading a lot of things about belonging, and I would there's a book called Land and the Politics of Belonging in West Africa. It's quite an interesting book, but Prof, some of the articles we're reading, it says that land has become a contentious issue. Not land is central, because if you remember in Liberian history, and please, I know people, we don't, when we're talking about history, we don't mean for you to jump on us. These are facts. So for Liberian history, we know that people were not allowed to vote. I'm talking about indigenous people, right?
Yes.
Until in the early 1900s, but they must own land.
Yes. They
So
must own
land
land.
was seen as the
Mm.
currency
Yes.
for citizenship.
Yes.
So now we come to present day, right? So we're looking at land as belonging. Where are you from? Oh, I'm from Kepamas. Where are you from? Oh, I'm from Sweju.
Lufa, Grand Cru,
So the idea of where are you from, and you're saying this, says, okay, this person belongs. Where are you from? Oh, my name is Masekwe. Oh, you must be Vi.
yes, yes,
Oh, my name is Collins. Oh, you must be Gribble.
yeah,
They have these signifiers, these identifiers that tells a person, oh, this person is from here. This
yeah,
person is from here. So the land is also central. Oh yeah, I'm from the Collins. The Collins on Mama Point. Yeah, the
yeah.
Collins on Mama Point. So you kind of like situate yourself, right? Belonging to a group. So now, with all this debate on citizenship, land has become a contentious issue again. Because if you're saying, where are you from? And somebody say, well, I was small when I left. I think my mom was from Carisburg, but I don't know, And then it has so like Honaya between Camino and Makuyu.
Yes,
Honaya, which was the unifier, but it
yes,
also divided,
yes,
right? The river. So then land becomes, right, a very important signifier,
yes.
right? Yeah. So my question now is that if you have the citizenship debate, the belonging debate, right? How crucial is land in that? Does land play any part in that?
Well, citizenship of where?
No, I'm talking about belonging.
Yeah, what I'm saying is that if we're talking about, if we talk about citizens or citizenship, it has to be connected to land. It may be a wider understanding, but citizenship has to have a bearing. That's what I'm saying. So except you want to say add something else to what the theme is.
No. So in some of the literature,
Mm-hmm.
right? If the people left and went to the urban areas,
Yes.
right? They came back to bury their love, their dead, right?
Yes.
And then people always say, like how we talk about, you should have known, right? So it's almost saying you don't belong here anymore.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know our customs and things.
Yeah.
How then can belonging be proven
Oh.
if those that you have gone to do not recognize you
Yeah.
as being belonging?
Now again, the issue of belonging is tied to a few things. Naming is part of the process.
Okay.
Naming, and there are a couple of mannerisms, cultural mannerisms, cultural attitudes that people will kind of expect you to participate in. And if you cannot participate in, then people will treat you, sadly enough, they will treat you as a stranger, though they will not harm you, but they will be cautious with respect to how they relate to you. That is why name is very much important.
Yeah.
That is why language is very much important. That is why your tastes, of course, one will say, but maybe I've grown out of this thing here, and therefore I cannot eat what? I cannot eat breadfruit. I cannot eat this and eat the other thing. But those things, the whole idea of belonging has to go hand in hand with the language, the facility with the language, the idea of naming. We were talking about Collins, we were talking about Flumo, Yakwauro, and other kind of thing. And if they say Flumo Tuba is a particular name from inland Liberia, and what have you. If somebody is aware of that, that person by the name alone, let alone the language, by the name alone, that person should be able to kind of situate you, locate you, and that sort of a thing. That's why they are very much important in the process. So in the absence of the queer thing called citizenship, there are those things that are supposed to be the identifier, the markers of where you belong.
Yeah. And that's what Achebe says. In fact, Achebe says not only that, but the way you name your kids
Yeah.
is what you've gone through.
Yeah.
Remember Okongo's wife?
Yes.
when she was naming her kids kept dying.
Yes.
Was it at the end she said God can do what he wants?
Yeah, well, okay, all
you know,
right.
and God did.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
there is a one key name in the choir. It's Dabaka. If this person is called Dabaka, you will find out that something terrible might have happened in the household, and this child was born just about that time, and so it's like, you've distressed me. Or Numudawaka, he's distressed me.
yeah.
You see, so anyone picking up on that and familiar with the language should be able to know what we are talking about. And you know Deconti very well.
Yeah,
Know.
yes. I like that Conti.
Yes.
Yeah. And you know, in the discussion of the land, you know, a lot of people always say, oh, you know, we should get our land back. The Berlin conference cut
Yes.
us up, you know, and we always like to remind people that the OAU or the African, they have accepted.
Yes.
You know, so there's no going back. We can't tell Guinea, you took some of our land, give us our land back. Because the OAU or the African Union, they have accepted the colonial boundaries.
Yes.
Yeah, there's no going back. You know, and so
yeah. Again, as we've always talked about on this, it's just important to know the historical trends, the historical strands that have evolved to a particular time, that have evolved to a particular milestone. It's important to understand them. But you cannot so easily uproot the lines. It's not that you cannot do it. That's why I say you cannot so easily do that. Once certain things have been planted and what have you, the idea is to move on. But then the other thing is the cognitive reality. That knowledge reality has to be there. As I think at the heart of it all will be more of understanding that wherever we flowed from, the idea is that we've come so far, and what we can do now is to create a united body, and then move from a point where we are now to go into the future, so that whatever pitfalls that may have been held can be kind of avoided in the next 2, 3, or 4 miles of our future. That's what it is.
Yeah. I mean, we all inhabit this small piece of land.
Yeah.
So it will behooves us that now even with the bicentennial,
Yeah.
or any event,
Yeah.
as an anchor to
Yes.
anchor us into a future that will
Yeah.
be an inclusive one as we move,
Yes. That's what it
forward.
is. That's what
Yeah,
it is.
yeah. But with the land, I think that the land, it has a spiritual meaning. It has a symbolic meaning. It has a basic meaning. You eat from the
Yeah.
land,
Hmm.
and not only with urban rural, but the further you go, it's almost like I always say that when you leave, it's almost like you're in limbo until you come back.
Yeah.
And that's what Frantz Fanon saw in the soldiers,
Hmm.
right? In those that went to Algeria to
Yeah.
fight, and those
Yes.
other people that the black skin, white mask, or wretched of the earth.
Hmm.
There was a dispossession, an unease of mind. They were unsettled.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's easy if people, and it's easy for people. Oh, I have my children in America. Okay,
Yeah.
but if you were brought up in a society in Africa, or not
Mhm.
even Africa, these things happen in other societies
Yeah.
as well. I was speaking to one of my friends who did his PhD on that. He said, Jackie, this is not unique to Africa.
Hmm. Hmm.
Even in Asian societies,
Yeah.
people crave return.
Yes.
People crave return.
Hmm.
People work, they want to go back.
Yeah.
So for those of us who were brought up, in a specific
Yeah.
place, returning nourishes not only I'm returning, it nourishes the mind, the
Yeah.
body,
It
and that's why,
has a neurological type
and
of healing.
therapeutic
Yes. Yes.
effect,
Therapeutic.
and
Yeah.
that's why I say that, when you go home and somebody asks you, the first, well, when are you going back? To me, that question signifies you don't belong.
Mhm.
Hurry up and
That's,
go where you belong,
yes.
because if you come home, why should they? Why should they? You're home, so why should they say, when are you going? I mean, there are different ways you can ask
Yeah.
that question,
Hmm.
but I think that when people go home, they after a while, it's like, well, I'm home. You don't be asking me that, and also, Prof, another thing is, when we talk about the about Liberia, we always say, we have four different groups, in this inhabiting this small land. The recapture Africans,
Hmm.
right? The indigenous,
Uh-huh.
the African American settler, right?
Yes.
And the West Indies who came.
Yeah.
So now that we are inhabiting this land, it behooves us to move forward as one, because we
Yes.
can't keep going back. Yeah, but yeah, Prof, I think that the symbolism of the land is very,
It's so
very
powerful.
crucial. It's very, very important, and I'm sure even in Liberia there are sacred parts of the land. I was talking to one of my friends who worked at the Sapo National Forest,
Hmm.
and there's a tree in that forest that you can't cut down. I think
Hmm.
it's a sase wood tree or
Yeah.
something
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
you're not going to cut down.
Hmm.
That's a sacred tree.
Yeah.
And the people around that area, they pay reference to that
Yeah.
tree. And so every nation has its sacred sites.
Yeah.
That should not be tampered with. Yeah, yeah. So for those of you who are listening, we have a treat next week. We're going to be interviewing our own Dr. Kim Moses Nagbe. So I'm announcing it so he doesn't say, oh, let's find another topic. A lot of us, when we are talking, people are writing, are you Dr. Kim Moses Nagbe from LU? And I always say Dr. Nagbe was my professor. He gave me a hard time, a very difficult time at LU, but he has written tons of books, including this one, Born of the Village Son. There are a lot of books,
Hmm.
pieces of poetry, plays that I think plays that Prof. Nangwe has written. We will be interviewing him next week. So please tell your friends. I know a lot of people know Dr. Nangwe, so tell your friends if you have questions to ask him. Please bring the questions so we can ask him, so we can know about his life. There are things that we want to know, Prof, that we don't know. Yeah, for those of you who are just joining us, we are here every Friday at 6 o'clock. We've been talking about history and literature. We talk about Liberian literature, African literature, and we invite you to join us. And I don't want to be redundant, but we always say we're on a journey. We are learning about Liberia. We're learning about Africa. We're learning about ourselves. So just join us. Tell your friends about us. It costs nothing. You just come and sit and listen. And we're encouraging you, if there are books that you want us to discuss, you've read the book, you want to come on and discuss it with us, please feel free to let us know. Focus on Liberia at gmail.com. So please. So Prof, let's go and start reading some of the comments, and then maybe we can respond to some of them and
Yeah.
see. So next week is Prof.
Hey,
Hey,
Margaret again.
Margaret Mapu Dyson is here. Hi, Margaret. Um, Oh, she's calling somebody. Hi,
Okay.
hi, Margaret. How are
Yeah,
you? Hope you are
Margaret.
well.
Nice to see you again.
Yes. And Sis Francis is here.
Yes,
Oh, we
hi,
see
Francis.
you see Sis Francis. You guys need to be coming and joining us and
Yeah,
discussing books.
I
And we
know.
still have Sis Francis's book,
Uh-huh.
Atlas Shrugged, that we're
Okay.
going to read. We will read it. We promise that we will read it and discuss it. Samuel Rest in my best show hour. Oh, thank you, Samuel. We try to make it light. Oliver Sodua is here. Hi, Oliver. Hello, family. What do you know about the Town history in Liberia all the way to St. Paul Bridge? We were not doing history. Prof, do you know anything?
Well, actually, if we can have a whole session on that, but the Vietown thing started mainly with when the what is it, the Freeport of Monrovia will be built, and people who were largely uptown decided that it was time to. They didn't decide really. Government wanted them to move on the other side of the river. Since there was much congestion on mainland Monrovia. So
Okay.
that is where it all started from. And as the people on Old Crew Town, near what is called Rock Crusher, the Rock Crusher
Okay.
area, that
Yeah.
people
Rock
started
Crusher.
moving
Yeah.
all the way down past old government hospital and all that. They started rolling all the way down. And then, of course, inter relationships started building up over there as the crew people were coming down. Vi and all those other people were also finding their location in the groove and all that kind of thing. But it's a very interesting and intense history, which we can always have a whole session on and talk about.
Yeah. I was asking Franklin Ben Weller the other day. We're
Mm-hmm.
talking about smell, no taste, and all that,
Uh-huh.
and PHP, and he said, "Oh, PHP means public health pump."
Yes,
I
that's
didn't know
right.
that.
Oh, yeah, that's what PHP means.
Public health pump.
Yes, PHP.
So was
Yeah.
that the only place they had a pump?
Yeah, that's in fact those pumps were gradually coming in, and that place there was one of the key areas that people walk 1 or 2 miles to get water from and all that.
Ah, okay.
Uh-huh.
Public health pump.
Yeah,
Okay.
public health pump.
Public health pump.
Yes.
Oh, Hawa Meska said, good evening, mentor. Oh, Hawa. Hawa
Ah,
is the warrior. She fights a lot for the disadvantaged and the traumatized people in Liberia.
oh, is that
We have
right?
to bring Hawa on one day so she can talk to us. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
she's really strong.
Okay.
Yeah. Keseli gave us a good evening. I'm watching from Monrovia. Oh, thank you
Okay.
for joining us,
Uh-huh.
Keseli. She's watching from Monrovia. He's watching from Monrovia, Liberia. How was it? How did the elites in Liberia or certain tribal groups acquire most of these lands or property in Liberia? Just curious. Okay. Well, before Prof gets in, we discussed that how our first the indigenous people could not own land because they were not citizens, so they couldn't own land, right, Prof?
Yes.
Yes, and so the settlers were citizens, and the settlers could own land. Although I myself am confused at how come Joseph Jenkins Roberts
On the
owned
hopeless.
so much land all the way Mama Point,
Uh-huh.
and give it to the Methodist Church, So I don't know if who he bought the land from, because
Mhm.
you cannot buy the land from the indigenous people if they didn't own the land because they were not citizens at the time. But also, you must don't forget that when the people came from West Indies, right? they were given 25 acres of
Yeah.
land. They were told that by Stephen Allen Benson,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that if you come and settle in Liberia, you will get 25 acres of land. And then I think it will be what, $5 an acre or $1 an acre
Mm-hmm.
for any additional land that you would like to have. So you have the settler owning land, you have the Barbadians and the people from West Indies coming with a promise by Stephen Allen Benson that you will get 25 acres of land if you come to Liberia. So of course, I don't know about the elites, but that's how some of them got land.
First, we should know that the land was owned by various indigenous cultural nations. And it was from these people that Stockton and Co. Bought a piece of land. And then by the time you knew it, these people, it's the same thing you find in America, where these Anglo-Saxons landed here, and by the time you knew it, they were, through whatever means, they were just bulldozing and taking the land here and there. And that's the same thing that happened in the Liberian context. They bought one or two parcels of land, and by the time you knew it, where whoever gave them the authority and what have you, they started, and then by the time you knew it, they all settled so many parts of the place there. And those who ought to have owned the land became what? Became beggars. Became beggars. And again, the story is a very long one, and that's where probably we want to end it for now. If we have
Yeah,
another time to have a session by itself.
there's a very, I mean, a well-researched book that was a dissertation that turned into a book. More Auspicious Shores. This book is really a good book. It's Barbadian Migration to Liberia, Blackness and the Making of an African Republic by
Okay.
Cary Banton. It's a
Okay.
very good book about how the Barbadians got to Liberia. But
Okay.
in it, she talks about the land also, that they were given 25 acres. I think if you were not married, you would get less. But if you felt like you needed more land, you could buy it for, I think, $1 an acre. Yeah. So it's a very good book, and you should, if you have time, you should get it and read it. Yeah. Abdul says you got this. Hi, Abdul. He says so true. Samia Mabia said that. Okay, I will leave that one alone. Hi, Eugenia. How are you? I hope you're okay. So Timothy says he's closely following. Roberta Richards says, well done. Roberta Richards says she's watching. Christopher Nyanda says, oh yeah, La Decretude. Ami Messizier was a father of this movement. Studied this movement while studying La Civilisation Française and Africaine. Well, Amy Messizier, but there were four. Remember, Christopher? There was also Leon Damas, David Diop, and
Leo
and
said,
Senghor. Leopold Senghor. Yeah. And he goes on, Veronique Tajo is a Franco-Ivorian who accentuated on this. One of her best literary works, La Latriti, is a piece to read. Don't know if there's an English version, though. Oh, okay. Akoi says the topic is interesting. Yeah, yes. Nelson say, I'm Nelson. Hi, Nelson. Good topic. Yeah. Okay. And Ford Morrison said, how about the fake Christianity we accepted blindly without self-judgment?
what did we know then?
Yes, isn't that what things for the past say? We've fallen apart. We
Put a knife to the things that
and
bound us,
yeah,
and
and the center can no longer hold. Yeah,
that is also repeated in this guy's book, Peter Abrahams.
yeah,
Yes.
yes. And for one of the things that Prof and I discussed when we're reading some of the articles is that when like in Kokonko's village, right? When Christianity came, the people who were strong in the community, like Okonko and the others, Oberika, those people were not fooled by the religion. But what the religion did was, what Christianity did was to go to the outsiders, the people, the Osu, the people that were the outcasts, the people that were out on the fringes of society, and they brought them in.
They elevated them.
Yes, they elevated them. So if I was in Okonko's village and I'm an Osu, which is an outcast, and the Christians bring me into their church, and I joined their church. And then what they will do, the district commissioner will say, well, Jackie, you know what? Since you are now a Christian, you can read and write, we're going to make you local commissioner. So the people who had no power in traditional societies now had all the power.
Yeah.
So the power dynamic was switched. These were the people now who was telling Oberika and Okonko what to do.
Yeah.
In the river between, Prof, there's another symbolic thing about the river Honaya. They said the river Honaya, there were little streams. And those streams that were going out to different places were like the Christians, the African Christians, who were going in different areas and bringing other people to the church. To the churches. So Honaya, like you say, it was the divider and the unifier, divided in that these little streams were going. So that's very interesting, Christopher. Oh, yeah. Okay. Thanks, Christopher. It's a joint effort. Prof and I, we go over this every time. Evertus Capesi, he's watching from New York.
Okay.
Francis said, don't worry about Atlas Shrugged, but Prof, of your library of books, which one or two do you suggest we try to read before next Friday? Yeah, Prof.
The one that you are looking at, which is what is it?
Born of the Village Son.
Born of the Village Son.
Okay,
and,
so Prof,
and there's another one titled "A Scream in the Storm." Scream, SCREAM, Scream in the Storm.
Okay, Scream in the Storm.
And then Wings for the Next Day.
Wings for the Next Day?
Yeah, Wings for the Next Day.
Prof has written a lot of books.
Wings for the Next
Day. Born of the Village Son?
Yeah.
What's the next one?
And I said, Wings for the Next Day. You got that one down?
Prof, a lot of people, when they're talking to you, they say, Road to Romeo.
Well, Road to Romeo must have been something almost immediately coming out of the war.
Okay.
And the language was fairly simple, so people went for it.
How about the Bug Challenge?
A Bug Challenge, actually, it's being expanded into flight from fright.
Okay.
FLIGHT and fright. Okay.
Okay, so there are three books. There's one here. The grass graces the land.
The grass graces the land. That's a book of poems.
Okay.
The grass graces the land.
Okay, and, I will put that. Yes, but where can they find these books?
Oh, you just Google them.
Okay.
Amazon and all those places. That's where you're going to find them.
Okay, so I think I put the books there so people can see.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
I think there's one. Lick them to the bones. Lick them to the bones.
I know that one.
Yeah, Lick them to the bones is a composite of poems and short essays.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But anyway, I'll pass a short list on to you so that people will be able. Since you said by Monday, that should be up.
I'll put it. I think, but please read it so we can have a lot of questions for Prof next Friday. Yeah. Christopher says, "Good to know public health pump." Yeah, Chris. PHP is called public health pump.
Yeah.
And what about point 4? Why point 4?
I think it relates to when they were designing they were building the free port. And I think a military program had mention of the 4 points that they had to put together. Well, that's where clearly that's where point four came from. I think it was one of those pillars of the place there, because all the way back there, you know that there used to be a big place for swimming and all that. People lived there. Some white people lived there at that point. Yeah, who is this now?
It's a good Prof. Nagbe as Roland Weir and my sister.
Okay.
Thank you for the mind searching topic. I believe there's a need to continue to discuss or address our Liberian history mainly from our African perspective.
Yeah, well,
and that's what we've been doing, Roland. You know,
Thank you.
we've talked a lot about history. We've gone through the Fernando Po, we've gone
Yeah.
through the Galinas, we've gone
Yeah.
through, you know, and some of them we will be bringing back as the you know, as people start asking. But we've tried to do that. Daniels, who are the elites of this age in Liberia?
What do we mean by elite first? What do we mean by elite?
Henry Last, the indigenous could not own land throughout Liberia.
No,
yeah, because you have to be a citizen. Citizenship came with land ownership.
I think we should answer it in the sense that before those people came, our brothers and sisters came from America and all those places there, those cultural nations had their lands.
Yeah.
But when this country was imposed now, then of course all other land ownership ceased. To get land, it had to be through the settlers. And all that.
It's like the British, how they decided to own land. Yeah, British don't care. Good to hear you guys discussing Liberia in a unique way. Land ownership is becoming a problem in Liberia. Yeah, I mean, I think that the show is interesting. Just came across. Oh, you see, we're getting new people. Declan T and Christopher. We've been on for maybe a year now.
Yeah.
You can go back and see. We've discussed a lot of Liberian literature, a lot of Liberian history. So you can go back and Google. I think it's on YouTube now or on Focus on Liberia. Yes. Victor says, Victor C, I'm late but watching from Minnesota. Thank you, Victor. You're not late.
At least you are here.
You're here. Scream in a storm, wings for the next day.
Yeah.
Born of the village sun, the grass graces the land. Those are your books, Prof.
Okay. And one Saturday in August.
Okay.
Yeah,
one Saturday in August.
Yes.
Okay. But you've written a lot.
Yeah, but as I said, we'll just give a short list when you are putting up the banner.
Okay,
that would be good.
Abraham says, good morning. Oh, it's morning there.
Good morning.
Okay. Yeah, my right hand salute you strongly, Professor Abraham. No, Kezeli. Be here next week so you can read some of these books and ask for some of these questions.
I swear.
I need some of them, like Fight from Fright mostly. I was at the port when the ship left.
Oh,
Oliver.
yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's right. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. This show is very interesting, my people. Mustafa Samuel. We try to stay away from politics. Victor says the professor makes mention of the full point. So by Monday, I really want to know how points came to being.
Okay.
One Saturday in August. That's your book. Yeah. Okay, Prof. Yeah. We want to thank you for in advance for joining us next week, so we can start asking Prof. And please ask Prof why he was giving me such a hard time in his class. I still feel that he should have been nicer.
Don't bury yourself in that.
What's that? Status in society. No, A. Daniels is defining elites. The people who have the most wealth and status in society, the most successful or powerful group of people.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's good. Thank you.
Yeah. So we've come to another ending of a discussion. You know, we have people, Prof. We have people.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, we want you to please join us next Friday. There's a storm, there's a blizzard coming in New York. So I'll be here if God is willing. So Prof and I will be here. We're here every Friday at 6:00, and we ask you to join us. If there's something you want us to discuss and a book, like we say, Sis Wilson said that Sis Francis Wilson said we can read another book. So we're going to interview Prof. If you feel that there's a book you've written, you know, we've had Vamba Sharif, we've had Augustine Sharif, we've had Cotto Reeves, we have a lot of people who've come on this show, Dr. Tipote,
Yes.
you know. So if you feel like you want to come on, you've written a book, let us know. But I'll before I bid you good night, I will let Prof say a few words.
Well, always we want to thank Jackie for her input and everything. We also want to thank all of you from TV Land who always help make this session a very important and insightful one. Without you, we can't do any other thing, you know, because you ask questions and those questions make us to go deeper and deeper and come out with certain things that are very much important for our country. So we want to thank you. Make sure that you keep on the reading spree. If you read a whole lot, you get a lot of information. And in the process too, we hope critical thinking is taking place. So all these things put together will make us very informed Liberians and very informed world citizens.
Yeah.
Thank you all for always coming.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you again to everybody for, like we always say, be on this journey with us.
Yeah.
And we always say it, and we keep saying it, lift Liberia up.
Mm-hmm.
You know, always lift your country up.
Yeah.
And we always say, from your lips to God's ears, He will bless our land.
Yeah.
We ask you to be safe. You know, mask up.
Yes.
Tell your friend and loved ones to mask up.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll see you next week. Yeah. And remember, whether you're from the rural area
or from city,
whether you own the land, the sacred land, the communal land, we are all Liberians, and let's strive to make Liberia a better place. Thank you and good night.
Yes.
We are Liberians.